this, and we are live. So we are live. Welcome, folks, to the Gear Spotlight. And my name's André Cholmondeley. We're here make weird music. We are. Oh, we're having echo. All right, let's fix that real quick. We are live. There we go. Welcome, folks, to. There's always something. There's always some technical magic that needs to be dealt with. But André Cholmondeley here with Make Weird Music, and this is another episode of the Gear Spotlight. And really happy to have tonight's guest, and who happens to be a dear friend, the executive director of the Bob Moog Foundation, and just amazing human being, Michelle Moog-Koussa. After all that, I say the name wrong. Michelle Moog-Koussa. I know, right? I certainly know how to say that. Michelle, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Andre?
I'm doing okay. I always get super nervous doing this. I don't understand it, but here I am, and I just happy
Hey, we're
to
gonna work out the kinks.
happy to be here. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about a few things, and some people might think gear. That's interesting. And what I thought was, here's someone who, if there's anyone who's grown up around some gear and watching it be invented and developed, it's you. And I thought a lot of people don't talk to you about that side of it. But I wanted to start out with the idea of the Bob Moog Foundation and the mission of the Bob Moog Foundation. And I want to let people know. Also, we have some links in the chat to check out the foundation. The Bob Moog Foundation is a separate entity from Moog Music. I always tell people that when I'm traveling around. It's different, completely different world. So I'd like you to tell us about the Bob Moog Foundation.
Well, the Bob Moog Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It is completely separate from the manufacturer, Moog Music. It was founded in 2005 when Bob passed away, and kind of formally launched in 2006. So actually, this August will be our 15th anniversary.
Wow.
And we were inspired by all of the people who reached out to us when my dad was sick and when he passed away. And we received just thousands of testimonials from people all over the world, kind of paying tribute to how much Bob Moog had affected their life, how he had, in some cases, even transformed their lives. And, they wrote in expressing how, because of Bob Moog, they were an engineer. Because of Bob Moog, they were a musician. Bob Moog gave me my creative voice. It kind of went on and on and on like this, very heartfelt reflections from people all over the world. And prior to that, I don't think that my family understood the kind of the true impact of my father's legacy. My father always held his career at arm's length, so we knew what he had done on a kind of surface level. But as far as the impact on tens or hundreds of thousands of people, that was new to us. And it was really when he was sick and when he passed away, when all these people reached out, that we began to realize. And we were so struck by the inspiration that he had cultivated throughout his life, either knowingly or unwittingly, that we felt like it only deserved to be carried forward, but when you had a force like that, it really demanded to be carried forward. And that's when we created the Bob Moog Foundation, to continue to inspire people through the intersection of science, music, and innovation, just like Bob did himself. Of course, maybe not just like Bob did himself, because we are not innovating synthesizers, but we do inspire people all over the world through our work. And it took us a little while to find our sea legs as a nonprofit, because we started out with basically almost no funding. And it was me for 5 years working in the basement of my home, trying to, navigate this immense legacy and kind of discern with a lot of people's help how to best honor it. And what we came up with were the three projects that we are stewarding now. The first being Dr. Bob SoundSchool, which is our educational program that teaches young children about the science of sound, and we can talk about that later. The second is our work with the Bob Moog Foundation Archives, which is a vast archive of the materials that Bob left behind. We have about 10,000 different items that range from different prototypes and hardware to desktop notebooks, schematic notebooks, photos, correspondence, vintage catalogs, and on and on and on. It's just a huge, huge collection of material. And we use that archive to share with people. We share with museums, with researchers, with journalists, and anyone who is looking to kind of verify history. And what we have always wanted, and we're finally able to bring to fruition, was for those two projects to converge into the Moogseum, where the education and archive preservation come together to bring Bob Moog's legacy alive to people of all ages and all walks of life, not just synth geeks, and people from all over the world. So that is where I am sitting right now. Our Moogseum opened in May of 2019.
Wow, that's great. That's a bunch of amazing layers of things happening. A lot of moving parts, as I know. And full disclosure, folks, not only am I friends with Michelle, but I've done a little bit of consulting with her and with the Bob Moog Foundation, and I've done a few things for promoting this mission. And one thing, as I travel around the world, as I work around the world, Moog comes up all the time because the instruments are there, and inevitably. There's that sense that you just said that you experienced at the beginning, where people just feel that there's something extra about Bob Moog. There's so many wonderful, synthesizer companies, but there's this little X factor about him just because of the way he really got things going and also how unique his inventions are. So that's one thing I want to say around the world, everywhere I go. The other thing is, people know about the Bob Moog Foundation. They're learning about it. I find that one of the things that I want to keep doing is making sure they know, however, what you said. This is a separate entity. It's a non-profit entity, and it raises its funds. Its livelihood is folks checking it out, buying merchandise, T-shirts, all kinds of wonderful stuff, and just donations. It's a tax-deductible organization. And so I know you have grants and donations. And you also do a raffle once a year. Tell us about that real quick, and we'll come back to this a couple times, but tell us about the raffle and how that fits in.
Well, we actually are allowed to do 2 raffles a year. We're strictly regulated by the North Carolina Gaming Board. And we are allowed to do 2 raffles a year, and we do that because they do help generate a significant amount of funding for our projects. We've been very, very grateful for them. We raffle off different vintage Moog instruments. And usually once a year we raffle off a vintage mini Moog, and we are doing that right now as we speak. I think we're on day 17 at the moment, and we're over half the tickets have sold. There are 4,500 tickets up, and we've sold over half of them. And this is just a really exciting way for us to be able to reach out to kind of celebrate the legacy of the mini Moog, and in the end, to offer it to someone who may otherwise have never been able to afford it, because the mini Moog that we're offering this time is valued at about $6,500. It's fully restored, and it has a custom wood cabinet that's absolutely stunning, made out of African mahor wood, which has somewhat of a mahogany look, but a little bit more textured. We usually do 1 raffle in the spring and one in the fall.
Okay.
And we get by last count, I think we had people from 48 different countries entering the raffle, which is just beautiful. We absolutely love it, and we try to let everyone know how grateful we are. And I was telling someone that, at least in the first few days of the raffle, I keep close tabs on it, and all of the sales come up on my phone. And I, every time a sale comes up, I just look at my phone and say thank you, because without this funding, it would be a lot harder for us to fulfill our work. So we're really grateful for that fuel that allows us to achieve our mission.
To operate. No, it's a direct. Yeah, folks. We talk about the music biz and the musical instrument biz and all these other businesses around music. Here's a mission that, as Michelle explained, and we'll talk about a little more in depth, is multi-layered. I mean, the historical aspect, the archival aspect, all the maintaining the blueprints and the schematics. So much amazing stuff that we're going to take a look at a little bit today. But also the educational part. I love that as someone who teaches, and watching that push forward, seeing kids 4, 5, 6, 7 years old learning what an oscillator is, learning what a theremin, playing a theremin, learning what a filter is, all these scientific missions that the Bob Moog Foundation does is also what you're supporting. I just wanted to take a quick look. There it is, folks. Beautiful Model D. And it's, as Michelle said, a beautiful custom cabinet.
Yeah. Yeah, it was custom made by Wes Taggart, who is very well known for his cabinetry, as well as being one of the foremost techs for Mini Moogs. He has restored over 500 Mini Moogs in his lifetime.
Wow.
Yes, he has been a wonderful friend and supporter of the Bob Moog Foundation. He's just great.
Look at that. And there's some detail, folks. So, and the tickets are to enter the raffle, $20 each, 6 for 100. 14 for 200, or 400 tickets. 40 tickets for 500. So some great price breaks, and a way that you can donate to a nonprofit tax deductible organization. Look at that. So go to the website and you can see all kinds of details. Again, it's an original Mini Moog, but put into this beautiful new custom cabinet.
Yes, it's a serial number 8903, made probably in the late 70s. Okay. And just so people know, because I know people will view this tonight, but later, is the raffle ends on March 29th at midnight. So don't wait. And there is a chance this one's going to sell out early. It has every indication of doing so. So if you want to get a ticket, I wouldn't wait.
Okay, I just put the link there, and a lot of people saying hello. How are you, folks? Hello, Kathy and Sharon and Robe One Music. We know who that is. And Greg. A lot of great folks here already. Thanks for stopping by. There's the raffle link, and you can please spread that around. As Michelle said, though, it's heading towards sellout. So grab a ticket or two now, because it's we got about 12 days, and it ends March 29th at midnight. And the winner is picked the next day or next couple of days?
No, actually the next day is the verification of the database. We go through every single ticket and make sure we've got it in there. So that takes an entire day. Two people here do that, because we take these raffles very, very seriously, and we want to make sure they're executed perfectly. And then we draw the next day, which is Thursday. We inform the winners on Thursday, but then we announce on Friday.
Okay, great. So there you go, folks. And this is open to anyone on planet Earth, right? You can be anywhere. Is that okay?
Yeah, and we have had winners from all over the United States: New Mexico, California, Virginia, North Carolina, Colorado, etc. But we've also had winners from Finland, Belgium, Australia, South Africa. I'm blanking on the rest, but it has been there's been a wide variety. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great, and the winners, as you can imagine, are always very excited.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. We should do some research and see if there's a Moog on Antarctica, but otherwise, every continent We know.
So what's so funny about that is our last raffle, we actually offered, it was our trifecta raffle, and we offered three synthesizers. They were kind of three lesser expensive synthesizers, but cool vintage ones. A Micro Moog and a Source and a Rogue. And one of the winners, I contacted him, and he was actually in Antarctica. He works there 6 months out of the year. So he lives in Colorado. We shipped his Rogue to his wife, and then she helped us take a picture of it by the computer where he was standing live by the Antarctica sign. So,
so he was by the sign, but the keyboard was in Colorado.
Yeah, he was going to have to wait until he came back to enjoy it.
That's pretty good though. Yeah, well, that's one of the beautiful things. You read these stories of artists around the world, and you think about in the 70s, people like Fela Kuti had, mini Moogs, and people in India, and people in Brazil, and of course Japan and Nigeria, and all around. That's what's amazing. It's really so. Let's talk about the instrument a little bit. Do you know? Can you tell me the number? I understand there's only about 12 or 13,000 mini Moogs. Do you have an exact number?
12,269 mini Moogs in existence.
12,269. Okay, great.
The first one was shipped at the end of November in 1970, and the rest started shipping in January of 1971.
Wow,
the last one rolled off the line in 1982.
I finally know the number, and where's my extracurricular stuff here? So I have a picture of the first one, but I have it on your website. That's amazing. So, folks, enter this raffle, get one of these, because they're not making any. That's it. There's 12,000. There's other ones that came later, but the initial item. Take us back a little bit to what it was like growing up in that house, where you heard some tinkering and you heard some noises, you heard oscillators and things. Give us a little bit of an early memory of that your dad makes things that make sound.
Well, I would have to say my earliest memories are probably by the time that we moved down here when I was 10 to North Carolina. I don't remember him doing a lot of that in our first two houses, because especially when I was like old enough to remember, in our East Aurora house right outside of Buffalo, where the plant was located at that time, he had his shop in a separate building across from the house. So I didn't really hear very much. And but it was more in North Carolina when, if I wanted to, the only reason that I would have to hear these wonderful sounds emanating, or these weird sounds, these weird, wonderful sounds emanating out of Dad's workshop, was because I had to go in and kind of see him for some reason, whether it was to tell him that dinner was ready, or he would often, we would have dinner, he would take a nap after dinner, and then he would go back in the workshop and work until 11 o'clock or midnight. So when I wanted to go to bed, I would go out and give him a kiss goodnight. And that is really when I would, I'd pad out there in my pajamas, like 10, 11, 12. And I would enter the exterior door, and then there was an interior door that you then had to open to go into the workshop. And I would just stand at that interior door, because he wouldn't know I was there yet, listening to these sounds. And, they fascinated me. And I think the biggest reason they fascinated me wasn't necessarily because I wondered how they were being made, but more I wondered how they would be used. Like what was his goal in making all of those sounds? Right. And because he held his career at arm's length from us, I wasn't really familiar with the music that was made from those instruments. And I had a pretty limited exposure.
Sure.
And so that is, I would just stand there at the threshold and wonder. And it really wasn't until I started this job and listened to more of the music that I I really began to understand. And very early in my time with Bob Moog Foundation, actually it was Moog Fest in 2007, that I met Eric Norlander. And he gave me a bunch of his CDs, and I went home and listened to them. And he uses so much Moog on there, and he's such a prolific, talented, kind of weaver, sonic weaver, that's when it all made sense to me. It's like, yeah, I could hear the songs from my childhood embedded in everything that Eric was, so beautifully crafting into these wonderful songs. So,
Yeah. No, that's great. That's a great story. Now, when you were a kid listening to the radio, as we all do, was there ever any time when you were kind of listening, and I mean, it could have been anything. Could have been a Beatles song or Stevie Wonder or Styx or something, or anything on pop radio, the Bee Gees. Was there a time ever where you heard like Bernie Worrell or something, and you said, "Wait a minute, did that happen ever?" Or
no, I'm almost embarrassed to say it really, very rarely.
okay, yeah,
On my radar.
sure.
Yeah, but every once in a while, I would pick something up. But
Yeah,
I never had this kind of epiphany moments, like so many people who heard the Moog synthesizer for the first time and their ears lit up and they had to know what was making it, and they delved into the music or they delved into the instrument.
sure.
I don't know. I feel like there was something in my subconscious that was there from the way that Dad treated his work, that it never stood out in a really obvious way to me until I was a little older.
A little older, yeah. Well, the part of it, in a way, it was kind of normative to you. It sounds like, because it was, you heard those sounds, as you said, not till you moved to Asheville. Now that's a fascinating area, and I want to also, you said it, but I want to emphasize to people, the Moogseum is open. It's been open. You can come and visit, and there's you can do a safe,
Yes.
kind of visit.
Yeah. I am sitting in the Moogseum right now. We actually had to close right at 5 o'clock just so I could prepare for this interview, and we had to kind of usher people out because it's kind of getting into the spring break time. We actually have been busy, but we're very careful. Everyone, of course, continuing to sanitize their hands when they get here, masking, staying 6 feet apart, and we're limiting capacity in the gallery to 8 to 10 people.
Okay.
So we're trying to give people, room to spread out so everyone feels comfortable. And we're conscious of the fact that while the numbers go down, we still all need to be really careful. So, but we're managing, to get plenty of people through here every single day, eight people at a time.
That's great, and I had the pleasure of seeing it a couple weeks ago, and one of the features that was there was the very first. Tell us about that, and tell us where it is now. It's in another museum, but my description of it was, this was the first synthesizer where your dad and Herb Deutsch was, giving him ideas and requests. It was the first one with keyboards attached to it. Is that correct? Is that?
Yes, I think that is
Can,
the first synthesizer of that type. Yes.
with a keyboard. Tell us a little bit about that unit and where it is now, and how.
So what André is referring to, what you're referring to, André, is the Moog prototype that was kind of commissioned, you could say, by Herb Deutsch in 1964 and eventually sent to him in 1965. And we had it on loan here at the Moogseum for 18 months. It was on loan from the Henry Ford Museum. Herb actually donated it to them back in 1982, before the Moogseum was even a glimmer in anybody's eye. And they have been just wonderful partners and super supportive. But we did ship it back a couple of weeks ago, which we're all really sad to do, but we know it's in, excellent hands. And, but we loved having it here. It's such a seminal piece when you think of everything that came after it. And
Yeah.
you know, the process was Herb and Bob met at a New York State Music Educators Conference in late in the fall of 1963, where Bob was selling his theremins, and Herb had one of his theremins, and Herb, you know, basically said, I'm a professor at Hofstra, but I'm also an experimental jazz composer. And there are sounds that I want to make that I just can't make with splicing tape or doing it any other way. You know, do you think you can help? And Dad said yes, and having no idea what he was getting into. And and then what happened is Herb got a $200 grant from Hofstra to spend 3 weeks in Trumansburg, New York with Dad. And he actually brought his family with him. They stayed at a state park in a cabin, and every day Herb would come into town and work with Dad. And, you know, basically it was this beautiful engineer and musician collaboration, with the musician guiding, you know, being the beacon, saying, this is what I need, and the engineer figuring out how to get it done, and going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And they did wind up with, you know, a small breadboard, playable breadboard that was initially the first controller for that breadboard synthesizer component was a doorbell.
Oh, like an actual button?
Yeah, some kind of voltage control, and the doorbell was it. So, you know, and then Herb returned home, and Dad spent the rest of the summer and into the fall developing this prototype. And in between that time, they also approached other people to get their ideas, like Vladimir Usichevsky at the Columbia Princeton electronic music studio, who was really important in defining ADSR. They went up to the University of Toronto that already had an electronic music department and talked to the chair there, Gustav Ciamaga. And it was Gustav Ciamaga who kind of helped them define the filter. So it was a little bit of a group effort. It was definitely, you know, Bob and Herb listening, and Bob in particular listening to what people needed, and it all came together in this small but beautiful prototype that was sent to Herb in 1965.
That's amazing. And I have, let's see here. We have a picture of it, as we do. Folks, I can't say enough also about the Moog Foundation.org website. It's just, you know, just great, really thorough. A lot of information up there. It's constantly updated with events that are happening, and you know, streams that they're part of now that streaming performances and things are. So I do urge you to not only go there, but tell people about it. But there you are, folks. That's it.
Yep.
That's the prototype. And so you had it here at the Moogseum for how long?
It was here for 18 months. Originally, it was only supposed to be here for, I think, maybe 10 months. But then the Henry Ford Museum was generous enough to extend the time here, because we did have to close the Moogseum for 5 months.
Right.
And so we really felt at a loss, because people were not able to see the prototype during that time. As a matter of fact, we actually removed it from the Moogseum. We took it to, you know, offsite storage so it would be secure and safe. And so no one saw it during that time, and we really regretted that. But they were really, really generous with us in allowing us to keep the prototype for a little bit longer.
Fantastic, and it still works, right?
I don't know that it does. I know that I think many years ago, like maybe 5 years ago, they might have had it on, but they would not allow us to turn it on, which I completely understand. I really do. I mean, I know of course, we wish we could have heard it, but at the same time, we have to respect the age of the components. And, you know, part of not playing it is really in the effort to preserve it as it is, not burn anything out or destroy anything, you know, by accident.
Absolutely. And so those of you gearheads checking this out, please go again to the moogfoundation.org, and there's a lot of beautiful pictures. And you'll notice too that how much the fact that it worked 5 years ago is good enough for me. But look at the jacks, and Bob had used RCA plugs at that point and you've got a combination it looks like of kind of TS plugs of some sort, and then RCA. What's fascinating is the idea of little modules is here we are today, right? You can go to any music store in the world right now, and the modular explosion is still with us, and here it is. This is Bob Moog kind of said, well, what if we get these little separate components, right? Amplifier, filter. It's just that's how impactful this man's legacy is, folks, because this kind of looks like a modern modular in many ways, and there's of course the hand-made, hand-soldered, hand-wired.
Yep.
So that's very cool, and of course none other than Herb Deutsch, who we love, and he's
amazing.
So amazing. Yes, he was there for for that event. That's really great. So now, and then there was another recent event where and it was great to I was there as an audience member, but you had some recordings of was it this actual synth, or was it an earlier one?
Actually, there were some Moog historians who helped us realize it was not it was not that prototype. There was a breadboard prototype prior to this finished version that Bob was using, and the reason we know that is because the instrument or components that he was using on what we call the Abominatron tape were polyphonic.
Oh.
Yeah, he could, actually play chords, but in demonstrating it, he said, basically that the modulation was not what he wanted with chords or in polyphony in general, and for that reason, he decided to go monophonic.
Okay, interesting. So that was so very important historical document. Can people hear that on the site still, or was that just a special?
That was a special one-time thing, although we kind of have it stored away, and it may be offered at another time. So people should look out for that. We will try and share it some other way.
Okay. So again, that would be, stay tuned, folks. Go get on the mailing list. Go be part of the Bob Moog Foundation.
Yeah, if you go to the homepage of the website and scroll down, there's a place to sign up for the e-newsletter.
Great. And so that's a great teaser. If you stick around, sounds like sometime in the special event you might hear that. But it's a wonderful tape. It was a reel-to-reel tape that had to be baked and carefully, it was almost
84-minute tape of Bob going through painstakingly every single parameter of the prototype, explaining it to Herb, because you have to remember all of this was brand new. Nobody knew what the functionality was except for Bob, and he was the engineer. And he even says at one point, I'm not able to do much with it, but someone with some talent like you could get something interesting out of it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, yeah, stay tuned for that, folks, and hopefully we'll hear that. It's the history is what's always incredible, and let's talk a little bit about where you're sitting, because what I love is in my visit to the Moogseum, right behind where Michelle is sitting. She's sitting behind the timeline wall, and you can see right behind her. Actually, it happens to say Moog Synthesizer Prototype sent to Herb Deutsch 1965, so it happens to be right there. And I have to say, just because I'm silly, that on Herb Deutsch's birthday on 1965, February 9th, I was born. So we have the same birthday. So Herb Deutsch in 1965 was using this prototype. And tell us a little bit about the history wall behind you.
So I am sitting in front of the Bob Moog timeline. This is a person visitors see when they come to the Moogseum, because what we really wanted to do was introduce Bob Moog to people. Some people know nothing about Bob Moog, some people know a little, and some people know a lot, but they usually know a lot about him professionally. They don't know as much about his personal life. So what we've tried to do is interweave his personal and professional life, so people can kind of get a sense of him more as a nuanced, complex human being, rather than just kind of this idolized figure. And so we have about 85 different photos on the wall. I'm sitting in one small section that tell the story from his birth to his death. But we also have these touchscreen interfaces, which unfortunately I could not get on the camera. I couldn't get everything in the screen, but in the frame rather. But we have these touchscreen interfaces to which we've uploaded over 700 pieces of archival material. So here's use of the Bob Moog Foundation archives. So when you're looking at the timeline, you can delve deeper into any year, any subject that you want to, and delve into, we have a ton of music exploring how Moog synthesizers were used, in addition to lots of videos of Bob talking about a variety of subjects. We really wanted to bring his literal voice into the Moogseum so people could kind of get to know him in that way and hear his thoughts on a lot of different subjects. And then there are just letters that he wrote his aunt when he would, from the time he was 10 to the time he was like 40. There's desktop notebooks, all kinds of rare photos, and vintage catalogs, and a lot of stuff that people won't be able to see elsewhere. Some of it is from the family archive, so it's only shared here at the Moogseum.
Okay. No, I'm looking at just in the background and remembering looking at that when I was there, and there was so much stuff I didn't know. And as you say, there's family pictures and copies of degrees and some handwritten letters, and you really get a sense of right, the man beyond the iconic inventor stuff that a lot of people know. Really just fantastic. And one of the special things, especially in this day and age of everything's kind of available online, is that you got to come see it, folks. Come visit Asheville. Come to the Moogseum to get the full experience. However, on the website, there is quite a bit of really cool pictures, and there's some little videos and things like that. You get some idea of what you'd see if you come down here.
It's worth noting as well, Andre, that there's the Bob Moog Foundation website where you can find out some stuff about the Moogseum, but the Moogseum has its own website as well.
Yes.
So there's even more information.
That's great. And what's the?
That's moogseum.org.
Okay, great. I'll put that up. Oh, that's great. I guess I've clicked through to that and not realized that it's
that's where people go to get their tickets, and it's not as robust as the Bob Moog Foundation site, just because the Bob Moog Foundation site has been around for 15 years. Right. And the Moogseum website is, of course, just about a year and a half old. So
I see. Yeah. Okay. Great. And there's we'll put that in the chat, folks. If you have some questions too, this is the time to drop them into the chat. And here, I'll put the Moogseum. So let's see who else is here. Thanks so much, folks. Great, kind words. Everyone's having fun. And what you can do is tell people about the Bob Moog Foundation. Again, I've made it one of my missions, and one of the things again I run into all the time is just that little bit of confusion. People think it's they make the synthesizers and they have them. No, different company. That's the Moog Music Instrument Company. This is Bob Moog Foundation. It's separate. So I find that that's something I really have to always explain to people. So if you're watching, you can be part of that, and you can let people know that it is a separate, tax-deductible, nonprofit organization, and it has these incredible missions, as Michelle has pointed out, the educational, archival, and the Moogseum, as she said, that's been a mission for years. So let's see. So who else is here? Someone ordered a sub 37. Okay, great. Bob Moog opened a fissure in human creativity. He sure did.
Yeah, I love that.
That's a good one. Um, there's a couple good links there. Someone's in Norway. All right, thanks for checking in.
Wow.
Philip B says, great to be online with a covey of weirdos in the positive sense. Well, thank you. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about, a little bit of the weird music. Let's see. Okay, great. If you have any questions, you can drop in here. Well, we're going to go to music. So Sharon's got a question about what kind of music Michelle's been listening to. Hey, Dina Perlman is here. How are you, Dina? Dina says hi. and Greg Marchesini says, you're keeping the legacy going, Michelle. Yes, she absolutely is. So I wanted to, talk about music for a minute because this is Make Weird Music. And it's a funny name that we have. For some people, they think it's just weirdo, experimental. But what it means is music that pushes the envelope, music that's a little different. And that's one of the things, when I've read interviews with Bob Moog, he always was into what Joe Zawinul was doing or what Herbie Hancock was doing or whatever. Miles Davis, he mentions all these artists, right? Stevie Wonder. Tell us a little bit of what's kind of, what have you been listening to? Someone asked that. What's your kind of, because you hear so much music, artists are sending you stuff all the time. What do you chill out and?
That's my least favorite question.
Oh no.
No, but I'll just be honest about it. What I have found is I can't listen to music when I work, and I work most of the time. So I just don't listen to as much music as I should. When it comes along, I love indulging in it. And actually, I have Roby One's piano CD in my car that I'm going to listen to on the way home because he sent it to me. But I remember, when I would go into my dad's workshop, he had a pile of like cassette tapes then, or CDs, just, very neatly piled up. Obviously, there's intention to attend to them, but unopened. And I always wondered about that until I started in this job and people started sending me their music. And the thing is, it's the opposite of what people might think. It's not that I don't like music. It's not that I don't care. It's that I find that I get so engaged with music that I want to give it my full attention. Because for me, I'm not a musician. And a lot of it is, me really trying to understand what's going on in a musical composition and in a song. And so that's not something I can do while I'm also trying to do the work of the Bob Moog Foundation. So I listen to little bits here and there when I can, but this is something I'm trying to change. I'm trying to, get a bit more work-life balance so I can do things like, sit down at night and just sit and listen to music, which I never do, but I do like to listen to a wide variety of music, and Dad did as well, as you're mentioning. You mentioned some musical luminaries, but who are very well known, but he loved super esoteric stuff too, and really enjoyed some of his more kind of fringe clients who were doing things that he found tremendously interesting and that were quite different. And people, the question people I would ask me a lot is, what was your dad's favorite music? And I would say that he was somewhat like I am, which is I don't really do favorites of any kind, because I just, with anything, there's too much to pick just one, whatever you're talking about. That's my personal feeling. But, what I tell them is my dad, the way he would put it is he liked damn good music. That was, when he would say something was damn good, that was his highest praise. And, he loved everything from classical to, Wendy Carlos and Isao Tomita and Kraftwerk and Tangerine Dream and Stevie Wonder, Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea. He was blown away by these musicians and how they could integrate the world of synthesis into their music. And I'll tell you a funny story. I don't know if you've heard this before, but just as an example of his connection to music, in 1984, the winter of 1984, we moved from our home here in North Carolina up to Massachusetts because Dad took a job with Kurzweil. This is at a time when he had 4 kids going through college, and that may not mean much to the people in Europe, but in America, that means a lot of expense. Having 4 kids going through college, and he at that point he was working for himself and just wasn't generating enough income to put 4 kids through college. So he took a job with Kurzweil, which he really enjoyed, and we moved from North Carolina to Boston, which was a 2 or 3 day journey. We drove up there. We drove up in 2 cars, and it was my mom and my dad and myself. We were the 3 drivers. I was 17 at the time. And then there was my younger brother who was not old enough to drive, and his friend. And so the 3 drivers would kind of switch around. So 2 of us in one car and 1 of us in the other. And then we'd kind of shift around so someone could sleep and someone could keep someone company. So at one point I was alone driving with my brother and his friend in the back, and I was listening to Prince's 1999, which I was completely addicted to at the time. And then we pulled over, we switched. Dad came and drove that car, and I switched with my mom and let my mom sleep, and I drove. And we're in the middle of that leg and I'm driving along, and I think to myself, oh my God, I left that Prince tape on like really loud. Dad is gonna kill me. And I was fretting, but you did not want to meet the wrath of my father. Not that he would, it's just being, any kind of disapproval is not fun. And he was a pretty serious guy. So we pull over, and I get out of the car, and I thought he was immediately going to reprimand me for, leaving my music blaring in his car. And instead, he walked right by me and went to my mom. I went around to my brother and his friend and said, oh my God, I just realized I left the Prince tape on really loud. Did Dad say anything? And my brother just looked at me and said, he played it 3 times.
That's 3 times. That's great.
And then Dad comes over to me and goes, who was that in the cassette player? And I said, that was Prince. He goes, God, that guy's a damn good musician.
That's great.
No reprimanding. I mean, when someone's a damn good musician, there's a damn good musician. I'm not sure that, my dad would have normally sat down and listened to Prince or listened to funk and R&B in his spare time. But boy, he recognized when someone was supremely talented.
Yeah, no, he absolutely did. And what a great story. Well, for a not favorite question, that was some of the highlight stuff right there. That was great. No, but I think what I love is you're always brutally honest, Michelle, and that's great when you're a director of such a global reach organization after all. But I loved what you said. You said, I just don't have that time. I'm busy. I'm doing this, and there's a focus involved. Not that you don't love music. Obviously, you love music, but that's a very honest answer. Some people would say a lot of BS and give me a list. But no, that's great. And and I sympathize with that. Yeah, because I'm often making music, so the listening part, it's in little compartments. One of the things too that, speaking about weird music, and you've heard this story, but some of the folks haven't. I was honored to meet your dad a number of times, 3 or 4 times. But one time he came to see my band play. And at the time, we had gone to the Moog Foundation, the Moog company, and bought a few pedals and things. And what an honor. There's Bob Moog out there. His dear friend Don Preston was playing with us. But I'll never forget just looking out in the audience. And we took a little 10-minute thing and introduced him, and there was, applause. A lot of people knew him in town because, you see him at the supermarket. But I'll never forget looking out there, and we did this strange little experimental thing. And just he was beaming. He was really, here's his old friend Don Preston that he'd known 50 years at that point, and we were all using his instruments. And so I love that. I also love what you said in your story about him working for Kurzweil, because that's something I want people to know, that a lot of people wouldn't do that. Work with other people in the industry. There's this competitive, and when you read the Bob Moog history, he was friends with the CEO of Roland, and he knew the people at Yamaha. He did consulting. All of these things are in the Moogseum. You see a wonderful history of a man whose mission was the music, the sound, and pushing technology forward. So he knew Leon Theremin. He worked with. So that's really what I think is something a lot of people miss, that his mission was beyond, his company. That was the main thing. But these are things you can learn at the Moogseum. Let's see. We got a little bit of time. Let's see if there's any other questions. Yes, his inventions have infinite applications. That's for sure. Dina says, great story. Yes, the Prince story. Yeah, that that's a good one. You can just picture poor Michelle thinking, "Oh no, that's he's over there going, this is great."
He's like jamming to Little Red Corvette, and the car in front of him just freaked out.
And no, that's great. So a couple other things. Again, the raffle, folks, don't forget to follow through and find that on the website. What's coming up otherwise this year for the Bob Moog Foundation Moogseum? I know you're incredibly busy right now. Can you tell us about a few things coming up this year?
Well, we do have Bob's birthday coming up on May 23rd, which happens to also be the second anniversary of the Moogseum. So we are wrapping up some plans to celebrate that. Okay. And as I mentioned, August 21st will be the 15th anniversary of the foundation, and we are working on a big celebration around that. But in addition to that, we're also working on growing Dr. Bob SoundSchool nationwide. So that is also taking a lot of our focus, and we are just on the brink of being able to do that, which is really wonderful. And of course, the work continues with our archive, and I just want to say to anyone out there, there are a variety of ways to support the Bob Moog Foundation. Donations are definitely vitally important. They are the fuel that makes our engine go, and we are a donor-driven organization, but donations of gear or memorabilia or anything that is Moog related or even synth related is very helpful to us. As Andre alluded to, the Moogseum is not just about Bob Moog, and I know Dina has been here and seen her father's work represented, and she helped us make sure that we represented her father's work in the way that it should be, along with the work of so many other pioneers and innovators in the world of synthesis. So if you have items that you can donate, we are always deeply appreciative, and they help enrich our work. They help us be able to share more material and inspire and inform more people. And of course, there's also our online store, which is a great way to kind of a fun way to support us as well, with all kinds of cool t-shirts and music and books, and that every purchase there goes towards our projects as well. So there are lots of ways to support, and the raffle is one of the most important ways that you can do that. $20 at a time. Super, super helpful.
Twice a year. Yeah. That's folks, you know what to do. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Bob Moog, Dr. Bob's SoundSchool as well. But I also wanted to point out to people, again, I was just there the other day, and I got some really fun fridge magnets and things. But this right here, folks, and I guess this is available on your website, the G-Force cards. Can they get that?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So for you synth nerds, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a set of playing cards of all the great synths and little bits of facts about each one. You can't really see it, but you get the idea. Really fantastic, and you can kind of quiz yourself and kind of go through. I've learned so much, as much as I'm a synth fanatic, there's always some little things that you haven't heard of that you don't know. And really a wonderful set of cards, and they have every synth you've ever dreamt of. And a bunch you probably never heard of, and a lot of strange ones. There's the EMS Synthy, and so they're all in here with some facts and figures on when it was released and things like that. So go to the website. T-shirts, really unique T-shirts, posters. We're about to take a little look at and finish up by talking about the Dr. Bob Sound School. And one of the things you can get if you're an educator of any sort, or you just want to get tight on these concepts, they've got these beautiful posters on synthesis. There's giant posters that one of them on what's an oscillator, what's a filter, what's a gate, what's a VCA. So any educators out there, keep in mind that the moogfoundation.org is a one-stop shop for all kinds of educational materials and stuff that show off your support, but also you're funding a tax-free, wonderful organization. Let's talk a little bit as we wrap up, Michelle, about the Sound School, because I know that's one of your most special parts. Here's some kids in a school just learning theremin.
Yeah, so what Dr. Bob Sound School does is it's a 10-week experiential curriculum that we teach to 3,000 second graders every year.
Wow.
We teach them about the basic physics of sound. It's how it's made, how it travels, and how it's heard. So the kids learn about vibrations and waveforms. They learn about pitch and volume. They learn all about their ear. They learn about the different ways that sounds all around them are produced, because we often just take sound for granted. It's all around us all the time.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to get kids to do is slow down, really listen, recognize some of the physical parameters of sound, because, you know, the chances are when they're not too much older, they're going to get their hands on an iPhone or an iPad. They're going to have some kind of cool synthesizer right at their fingertips. We want them to be able to understand a little bit deeper what they're actually doing when they're turning those virtual knobs or pushing up those virtual sliders. So what we do is we train the teachers in our area to teach the children, and then they go about teaching this curriculum. And it's so exciting to see the kids just light up. Because as I mentioned, the curriculum is very experiential. There are not too many worksheets involved at all.
Right.
It really pushes kids to engage, to come up with their own ideas, to embrace those ideas and kind of experiment with them. They all have science notebooks that are modeled directly on the scientific method after Bob Moog's scientific notebooks, after his schematic notebooks. So they write down their ideas, they test their ideas, and then they write down the results, just like Bob Moog. And we do use the theremin quite a bit because it is such an engaging interface. And so deeply intertwined into the Moog legacy, because it is how Bob Moog got his start, and Leon Theremin was a kind of virtual mentor to him his entire life as he studied Theremin's designs. And we have the teachers hook up a theremin to an oscilloscope, and we teach the kids about volume and pitch that way, when they absolutely love it. So we've been very gratified that not only do the kids love the curriculum, but the teachers do too. We've been very thorough about creating like a 60-page curriculum guidebook for them that spells everything out for them. It even integrates other standards, or English standards. There are cultural standards it woven into our curriculum. We've spent 7 years developing it. And we know, we have recognized that making things as easy and thorough for the teachers, so everything is at their fingertips, is vitally important, because there are so many demands on them, which of course, Andre, I know you know, because you do some substitute teaching. So we've been really gratified to see how much the teachers love the curriculum. And we've also gotten wonderful feedback from the administrators and even from the parents, who will, tell us how much their child is, my child doesn't talk about anything, but they talk about Dr. Bob Sound School. They talk about the theremin. They talk about Bob Moog. They talk about Clara Rockmore. They, talk about when they hit a thunder, they hit a xylophone underneath a thunder drum and the beads popped up, and understanding the power of vibrations. So it's especially when the parents come back to me, they basically can repeat our curriculum back to me. I know that we've really achieved something important. Yeah. Yeah, so we're really thrilled. As I said, we've been delivering this curriculum in Western North Carolina. We have always wanted to grow outside this area, but we needed to develop a special educational tool to do that. And we are just at the brink of completing that. And when we do that, we should, in the next, I would say, 12 to 24 months at the very latest, you should see us growing into other areas of the country. And I know we're already making headways into different school districts who are interested. We've had interest from all over the country.
That's great. And internationally, is that next, I guess, but right now, just nationally, you want to expand?
Yes, I think nationally first. I think the next step forward for us after that would to try to be able to get as much educational information up on our website that we could share internationally, and then actually to make the step to deliver Dr. Bob SoundSchool, either this iteration, or we're hoping to develop further grade iterations as well to help deliver that to schools all over the world.
Great.
But, of course, that is a huge, that comes spilling out of my mouth. And I just can envision what a massive project that is. So, of course, all of this depends on funding. So,
yes. And if, we've all seen and read the statistics of how children, we've known this for centuries, right? But people have read this. When children have music in the curriculum, or curricula, their math is better, their science is better, they're calmer human beings. I mean, we know this, folks. So this is so fantastic, because this is just a direct way to supplement what's happening in schools. And Michelle's right. I substitute teach here, and there's been times I've been teaching, and one of the other classrooms I see 20 theremins rolling in. And it's like, oh wow, so it really is such a direct way for you to support such a positive thing in our world right now.
Yeah, and I will say that while we really are passionate about teaching little kids about the science of sound, that isn't the only goal of the curriculum. The goal of the curriculum also is to get them engaged in science, to start them thinking about careers in science, to inspire them to, embrace all their ideas and try them out, and not to be afraid of failure and keep on going. We actually show them pictures from Bob Moog's schematic books where he crosses something out and just said, it doesn't work. And then he goes to the next page and tries again.
Yeah.
But we're also just trying to develop that sense of curiosity, of discovery, and creative thinking. We really feel like that's something that in our society we need lots more of.
Right.
We the world as it develops is going to have more and more complex problems that are going to need really strong problem solvers, kids who begin to think critically when they're very young. And so we're hoping that Dr. Bob SoundSchool helps foster that. And I will also say that during this time of the pandemic, we did create 4 educational videos that are up on YouTube. They are aimed at, kind of the 7 to 10-year-old set.
Okay.
They're called At Home with Dr. Bob SoundSchool. And they feature Michelle Benigno, who has been really important to helping us develop our curriculum. She's a expert on STEM education here in North Carolina. Okay. And she is the one teaching these different activities, how to make your own kazoo, how to make glasses sing, how to make oobleck dance, which is like she creates this cool slime. Teaches you how to put it on top of a speaker. You turn up the speaker and the slime dances, teaching kids about the power of vibrations in a really, really, really fun way. So if anyone out there has kids of that age or knows anyone who has kids of that age, please check out At Home with Dr. Bob SoundSchool, 4 videos on our YouTube channel.
I love it. Yeah, I didn't know about that. So that's awesome. I'm learning so much tonight. Folks, I put the link right in there, the link for the first video, and also please go subscribe to the Moog Foundation um, YouTube channel. A lot of wonderful stuff there. Some technical things, some wonderful things about the Dr. Bob SoundSchool, all kinds of great little videos that I'm going to be discovering. I didn't see this. Honoring Keith Emerson. Of course, Michelle just had a wonderful post as we commemorated. It's tough because what word do we use? We're still, missing Keith, but the 5th year, so there's a lot of wonderful things. Check out the website, check out the YouTube as well, because a lot of really interesting things there. Michelle, this has been great.
Thank you for having me. And I just want to say, just in case there's anyone out there that doesn't know, I also have a little Facebook page where I share some of my kind of in between my personal and professional life. I have a page called Moogseum, where I use that to share the family archives as I go through them, which is a collection of about 5,000 different pieces of material that I have been wading through for years and organizing and scanning. And there's all kinds of really cool material in there that we do not share through the foundation. And I don't share it on my personal page either. So if you're at all interested in kind of, sharing that in between place for me, it's not my personal page and it's not the Bob Moog Foundation page, it's somewhere in between. Please check it out and follow along.
That's awesome. Yes, I love that page, and there it is, folks. I just put a link in the chat also. And just a couple, Rick Rogers, a lot of love for the instruments and for the foundation. Fantastic, folks. Thank you so much. Someone just subscribed to the Moog Foundation YouTube. That's awesome. Well, it's been beautiful. And the other thing you're supporting, folks, as supporters of Make Weird Music, you're supporting the next generation of kids to make weird music if we can get them learning about this amazing technology. So you know what to do. Go subscribe. Come down to Asheville. Visit the Moogseum. Most of all, get a raffle ticket or 2 or 3 and win this. Have a chance to win this beautiful mini Moog, one of only 12,000 on planet Earth. And let's all see Michelle. You're welcome to come back anytime when there's a new project and some new things to celebrate. Love to have you back here. And I'll say right here on the air, I'm always in your corner to help promote the BMF, and I want to see it go international. And I have friends and family around the planet, so that's going to be a personal goal to when you're ready to start getting Dr.
We would love that. We would love that. We just need a staff 25 people to help. And right now we're a staff of 4. So we got some work to do. One step at a time, though. Yes, we'll get there.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for having me on, Andre. It's been just a pleasure as always.
Absolutely. And folks, I forget this sometimes. Make Weird Music. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You're there right now. Please like and subscribe. In 2 weeks, I have a gentleman named Merlin Ettore, who's a wonderful drummer, modular synthesist, and it's Merlin, like the magician, Ettore, if you want to check him out. He'll be here in 2 weeks. And a week from this Friday, I've got on the other show I do, Confronting Creativity, we've got the one and only Michael Shreve, original drummer of Santana and all kinds of wonderful groups, and Paul Wertico, the brilliant drummer and percussionist from Pat Metheny Group and all kinds of other groups. Those 2 old friends are going to be chatting a week from Friday, 6 p.m., and then in 2 weeks, as I said, Merlin. Folks, thanks for being here. Signing off. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So